welcome. I appreciate you coming on the call today, and I realize you could be spending your time in many, many, many different ways, but you chose to be here, so thank you. My name is James Wisdom. I'm a professional EOS implementer. I've helped dozens of leaders of growing companies get more of what they want from their businesses. Now, today, I'm going to help you master your data to make smarter decisions. I want to help you get away from the guesswork, the feelings, the egos, and subjective emotions that so often drive decision making in entrepreneurial organizations. And I want to help you make clearer, more effective decisions that drive results. I want to help you cut through the noise and focus on the metrics that truly matter. Now, this is a simple but ambitious goal to get done in the next hour, but we won't be successful without you partnering with me. I really need you to engage and actively participate in the work we're going to do together today. If you're struggling to use your data to make great decisions in your organization, the next hour will change the destiny of your business and your life for the better, but only if you participate. Are you with me? I see thumbs. Yes.
Yeah.
In case you didn't know, I'm a little enthusiastic. So here's how we're going to spend the next 50 or so minutes. In the first part of the call, I'll establish context for the challenge that we're trying to solve, so it makes sense within a larger framework. In the second part, I'll show you the tools and help you start mastering your data to make smart decisions. In the third part, I'll field any questions. But if you have any questions along the way, feel free to throw them in the chat, and our trusty facilitator, Chris, will give you a heads up, give me a heads up, time permitting. Julie, can you please? Thank you, dear. I was just going to say, quick etiquette note, unless you're volunteering, and volunteers will be needed, so don't be shy. Please keep yourself on mute unless you're speaking. I do want to hear what you have to say, but no one wants to listen to your barking dog, your crying baby, your prized and beloved cockatoo, no matter how adorable, no matter how wonderful they are. And thank you for making this call great for everyone. Is everybody ready? Okay, I see thumbs. I require input, or I just deflate like a balloon. Okay, so I help a lot of entrepreneurial companies. I've noticed recently that most of the companies I'm talking to, clients, prospects, and friends, are having trouble scaling and growing, and that leaders of those companies are often frustrated. They're hitting the ceiling. They talk to me about how for the first couple of years, it was almost too easy. Right? Then all of a sudden they hit a ceiling, they got stuck, they just couldn't figure out a way to break through that ceiling. I hear that a lot. That's normal and that's commonplace. I personally have been there with my own business. I mentioned to some of you at the beginning, I used to own a marketing agency. Now, I believe that I can help with that frustration a little bit with this session. Now, what we're going to be doing is using the data tools and disciplines of EOS, or the Entrepreneurial Operating System, to help you make smarter decisions with data. Now, truth be told, we only have an hour, so I'm going to cover just the essentials with you today, help you get moving in the right direction. And I'm going to offer myself up for questions after the session. And when I say after the session, I mean at the end, but I also mean contact me a week from now if you go, you know what, I don't get this. I'm happy to help. I'm here to help. I do a lot of helping. I like helping. So our purpose today is to help you master data to make smarter decisions. I hope that sounds good. Now, for anyone that joined in the last couple of minutes, please think about the three most important leading indicators of your business. The things that when they're on track, you're on track. If they're off track, you need to be sorting something out. The big red light is flashing in your business. Just jot those down. We're going to go deep into these a little later. Now for some context, a little bit about EOS and a little bit about me, so you know I'm not just here practicing on you. Now, as an EOS implementer, I help people get more of what they want from their businesses and their lives by providing a complete system of simple, proven tools that help you do three things that we call vision, traction, and healthy. Vision just means getting everyone 100% on the same page with where you're going and how you're going to get there. Traction means instilling the discipline and the accountability throughout your organization so that no matter where you go, you see people executing on that vision. And healthy means making you a more healthy, functional, cohesive, open and honest, fun-loving team, because sometimes you're not. From there, we find as goes the leadership, so goes the rest of the organization. Ultimately, you get to a point where everybody in the organization is 100% on the same page with your vision. They're executing on that vision with real discipline and accountability. They understand their role in that vision, and they're actually working together as a healthy, functional, cohesive group of people who like spending time together, right? That's our goal. That's what I do. I help companies achieve that. It feels great. Everything I'm going to share with you today was created by a lifelong entrepreneur by the name of Gino Wickman. This isn't something that I just invented out of thin air. There's over 250,000 companies globally running on EOS tools today. Just a set of simple, real world, practical tools, timeless concepts that have been around for 100 years and are going to be around for 1,000 more. Last year, companies running on EOS grew at an average rate of 34.4% year over year. That's the average. That's not bad, right? Okay, so for people that truly want better businesses and lives, EOS just works. EOS or the entrepreneurial operating system, EOS or the entrepreneurial operating system isn't software. It's a management operating system that maximizes the human energy in your business, delivering better results for businesses and more fulfilling lives for the people who run them. You're not going to find any unicorns, pixie dust, magic pills, silver bullets, the Hobbit. That's not here. These are all practical tools. Now, the kinds of organizations that I work with are entrepreneurial. They generally, not always, but generally have between 10 to 250 employees. Their owners and leaders are growth oriented. They're open minded. They're willing to be open and honest and vulnerable with themselves and the people around them. And they're more afraid of the status quo than they are of change. They're looking for the next level in their business. So that's about EOS. Let me tell you a little bit about me, James Wisdom. I grew up in an entrepreneurial household. I watched as my mom grew a thriving financial business from thousands of cold calls on our plaid living room couch. She is a superstar, and she is my guiding light, my inspiration. I went on to college and I got involved doing marketing with big, iconic global organizations. I loved making great marketing. And I loved unlocking the potential of the people on my teams to make that great marketing. I didn't do it all myself, right? But what I hated about those organizations, they were big, bureaucratic, tough to get decisions made, politics, all that nonsense. So I said, I'm going to be a smart guy. This is about 7 years ago. I'm going to be a smart guy and I'm going to open my own marketing agency and I'm going to work with smaller, more nimble organizations that won't have those big bureaucratic problems. And surprise, surprise, the smaller, more nimble organizations had, in some cases, exactly the same problems, or they actually had worse problems than the big bureaucratic companies I've been working for. Shocker, right? But what was really painful, frankly, for me, was that I started having problems with my own organization about a year and a half in. I was really successful. I was doing really well, but my personal life had completely vanished and I was miserable. So I went into my network and I asked around and I had two different people, two totally different people recommend, hey, you should check out EOS. So I checked out EOS. I implemented it in my business. I tripled my revenues over the next 3 years. Awesome. But what was more awesome was that I actually got my personal life back. I could go and see my kids when they're at school, when they're doing the concerts, when they want to go to the skate park. I could be there. Right? I was able to regain those things and have a better life. And when I went through that process, I had a midlife epiphany, not a crisis because there's no sports car involved, but an epiphany that when I look back at my career, what I really loved, what really get me excited is unlocking the potential of the people around me. So that's why I'm here. I'm here to help unlock your potential. And I love unlocking the potential of my clients and anybody that crosses my path. I hope this comes across by the end of the session. Anyway, now let's get into the tools with you. This is going to provide some context for the data work that we're going to do. Now, the best way to get that context is with a model that has your business at the center of it. Okay. Now, this model, stems from a discovery that all entrepreneurs, all entrepreneurial leaders tend to wrestle with 136 issues simultaneously. And that discovery tells us that to the extent that you can strengthen the 6 key components of your business, those issues just tend to fall into place because they're really symptoms of the true root cause. And so when I'm talking about the journey, it's a journey to strengthen the 6 key components of your business. Now, I'm going to share these with you very quickly to provide context. Here we go. The first key component of your business, of any business, is the vision component, right? The vision component is just getting everyone in your organization 100% on the same page with where you're going and how you plan to get there. Okay. Now, each of the 6 key components has 2 tools or disciplines that help you understand how we strengthen the vision component and all 6 of these components. But we're going to be focusing on data today. We don't have enough time to go through all these components, but I have some other webinars that I'll mention later. Which brings us to the second key component, the people component, right? Very simply, you can't achieve a great vision without great people. The truth is, every organization defines great people differently. When we spend some time on the tools and disciplines, we cut through all the wonderful terms out there like superstars, A players, top quartile, and really get to the heart of what makes for great people in your unique organization. But again, that's for another time. Today, we're focused on data. Okay. Whoops, I went too far. This is about running your business on facts, figures, and objective information rather than feelings, egos, and subjective emotions that often drive decision making in entrepreneurial companies. Today, we're going to start getting to the heart of mastering your data to make smarter decisions that drive performance, accountability, efficiency, and most importantly, clarity and confidence as you move forward. Now, what happens, it's like magic, when you strengthen the vision, people, and data components in your organization is that everything becomes transparent and crystal clear. All the impurities, imperfections, problems, challenges, and obstacles just jump right out at you, but also ideas and opportunities that you're going to want to take advantage of. That leads us to the 4th key component, the issues component, right? Strengthening the issues component is just getting really good at solving your issues as they arise, solving your problems. You can't achieve success if you're not great at setting your problems up as they happen and knocking them down and making them go away forever. The 5th key component is the process component. Strengthening the process component is just getting all the most important stuff in your business done the right and best way every time. It creates scalability and consistency in your business. It makes it easier to manage, more profitable, and more fun. Maybe I'm crazy, but I think process is sexy. The 6th key component is traction. Traction is about bringing your vision down to the ground and executing on that vision day in and day out. Now, it's not a coincidence that vision's at the top of the model and traction's at the bottom. If you can't bring your vision down to the ground and execute on it well, vision without traction is hallucination, right? In the future, we'll talk about the 2 tools or disciplines we use to strengthen the traction component to help you get what you want from your business. But those are the 6 key components, and those 6 key components make up the EOS model. EOS stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System, a way of harmonizing and orchestrating all the moving parts of your business to help you run a better business and live a better life. That's what it did for me, and that's what it does for my clients. All right. Now we're going to talk about data. Click and click. So this is the big model. It's got all the different components there, and we're going to be focusing on data. Now let's dive in. Our challenge with data is that we've got to boil your data down to just a handful of numbers that give us a pulse on your business. So we know exactly where we are. Are we on track, right? The first tool for strengthening your data component, whoops, how did that get there? Did I miss a slide? I did. Well, the first tool for strengthening your data component is something we call a scorecard. The scorecard is a powerfully simple tool. Here's the template, but my slides are out of order. So I'm going to have to pause for a second, okay? 1 second, guys. I'm sorry about that. That's really odd. I went through these beforehand, and now I am feeling a little bit embarrassed. Huh. Oh, this is really weird. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing, and everybody take a deep breath. Check your notifications, but please do come back to me. And yeah, how did that happen? That got dragged down there. That doesn't belong there at all. Okay, all right. And that's there. And yeah, where's that other slide? That one's completely gone. Super. I'm not thrilled about that. Bear with me, guys. Oh boy. Oh, I only spent hours working on this. What's the big deal? Oh, geez. All right. Coming right back here, guys. Thanks for your patience, and I apologize. It's not the first time that Microsoft PowerPoint has betrayed me. These things happen. 1 second. I'm going to go back to screen sharing. There we go. Share screen. Section 1 and share. Super. Super. Can everybody see the grid? Okay, I see a thumb from John, so I'm going to take that as a yes. And I'm also going to take it as you guys can actually hear me, which is nice.
See it and hear you.
So yeah, this is the template for the scorecard. That's a powerfully simple tool. So as I'm talking to you right now, we're going to be doing some work on this. So you're going to need to get your pencils out, or your pens, or whatever you use. What I'd like you to do is to sketch out this table in your notebook, or a piece of paper that's laying around on your desk, or Remarkable, or your iPad, or wherever you take notes. Now, just really, you only have to focus on the first 3 columns. Write down the headers. Just go ahead right now and write this out. Who, measurables, and goal, and make those into columns and make those into rows. And what I want you to do in the measurables column is just start writing what comes to mind, because I'm trying to get you to brainstorm as I'm talking. I'm going to give you a bunch of ideas as we go through the next 20 minutes or so, but I want you just to start thinking about what are the measurables that you should be paying attention to in your business. And maybe you're already paying attention to some of them, but try to come up with others. Just start writing what's coming to mind. What are you measuring, or what should you be measuring? Okay, feel free to jot your ideas down as I talk. So go ahead and sketch this out. The 3 columns are who, measurables, and goal. And what I'd like you to do is just start writing what comes to mind in the measurables column. Put your pen, pencil, or stylus into action. All right, I'm going to keep talking. I'm going to give you some ideas. What makes a good scorecard? First thing, there's a who column, right? And that's who owns the number on the accountability chart, who drives and delivers that number to us every week, not who enters it, right? It's the person who owns it. And so if it's a sales number, your head of sales owns that number. They're the person that when we review the scorecard every week and it's off, he gets the side eye, right? That's the one person. There can only be one person that's in that who column. You can't have 3 people in the who column, because then you get this action, right? Oh no, I didn't do it, he did it. Then a measurable column. Now, a rule of thumb, 5 to 15 numbers in your scorecard. Now, my last business, I ran on 14 numbers on my scorecard. So less is more. Ideally 5, but that's really hard to do. 5 to 15 numbers. What are the numbers for your business? Start writing them down. Now, here's some examples. Here's some simple examples to get you thinking. And now I'm thinking this slide's missing too. So this is going to go really poorly, actually. Yeah, here we go. Here's some examples. I'll just bounce around because I know how these slides are set up. Okay, so here's some example measurables to get you thinking. Okay, then there's that goal column that you just sketched out, right? The goal is the number we want to see every week. That tells us we're on track to hit our 1-year plan. Now, if you're not sure about your 1-year plan, don't worry. I've got you covered. Go to my website, jameswisdom.com, and scroll all the way down to the resources at the bottom of the homepage. I did a webinar on annual planning. Go back and watch that and ask me if you have any questions, but that'll give you clarity on your 1-year goal. But each measurable has got to have a goal, okay? Now here's some more measurable examples to inspire you. And then as you saw when I brought the template up, there's 13 weeks at a glance. We want to have those 13 weeks on the right-hand side of the template. Why? Because what you're trying to create is the opportunity to see patterns and trends and have an absolute pulse on your business. So you start to develop an insight on seasonality, right? A lot of businesses ebb and flow with the seasons around holidays, things like that. But having that view into the last 13 weeks gives you a good pulse on your business. And so the way this exercise works, again, I want you focusing on that measurables column, okay? So now travel with me now. It's in here somewhere. I'm going to find it, people. I'm sorry to bounce around. You're on an island. I want to mentally take you to an island. And you're there sitting on your island, basking in the sunset, sipping on whatever it is you like to sip on. And a cabana boy or cabana girl comes out, hands you a piece of paper. That piece of paper is your scorecard. Other than that, you cannot access technology. This is like way out in the Pacific somewhere. There's no cell phones, okay? You can't make a phone call. There's nobody to talk to on this island. Now, that piece of paper needs to contain the 5 to 15 numbers that give you an absolute pulse on your business so that you'll know you can stay on that island for another week because everything you need to know is on that piece of paper. You don't have to come home. So the question is, what are the numbers you would need to see every week on that island to have a pulse on your business? Okay. And so we're going to start the brainstorming process. Here's some more ideas. And again, I'm gonna have to bounce around a little bit on the slides. I apologize. James is getting creative. Oh, it's not that one. There we go. So you don't have to put these numbers in, but here's some more ideas to get your wheels turning. Okay. Here's one. Most of my clients track their weekly revenue. Now, just so you know, money is coming in. That's important, right? Tracking cash balances so you know how much money is in the bank. Tracking sales call or sales activity, right? So that you can get a sense at the top of the sales pipeline, money coming in. The idea is you want these to be leading indicators if possible. Sales meetings, that's meetings, obviously proposals, closed business, customer satisfaction, accounts receivable, accounts payable errors, right? It's going to be different for every single company, but these are just ideas. Utilization capacity, just getting your thinking brains like, what are the numbers? Get some general ideas. So as we're talking and you're writing, let's keep going, okay? Now I'm going to go back to the other example slide again and show you those examples one more time. You might not have had enough chance to read it, so keep writing, keep working. If you do more than 5, that's fine, great flow, but stay focused on your island numbers. I love this tool. It's wonderfully simple, and it's as a bit of background, I spent 20 years working with sophisticated measurement and decision-making tools across big companies, right? As I mentioned before. My teams and I even invented some. Okay, I'm not exaggerating at all. And with respect to the very intelligent, complex, and sophisticated tools that I've used and invented, this is better because it's simple. Simple, simple, simple. And simple means clear. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna show the next page of examples again. Great. Okay, so for many in this room, here's how you get your pulse, right? This is how I got my pulse for that first year where I wasn't feeling great, wasn't going great. You're laying in bed, it's 2:00 a.m., and you're getting your 2 a.m. thoughts. You ever get those? I've had them. And you're getting this uneasy feeling. So you get up extra early that morning, you get into the office and you start asking, so what's going on? You're going around to your people. Hey, Bob, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Or you're texting. You're texting people, you're sending it to them on Slack or Instant Messenger. Can you tell me what's going on? Can you tell me what's going on? And you talk to the same 2 or 3 people, and then eventually you got your story, right? Now you start to feel better and things are good, right? You feel reassured. And then about 2 weeks later, you're laying in bed at about 2:00 in the morning and you're repeating this cycle every single week or two. This scorecard puts this to rest, okay? By not having a scorecard, you're flying blind. Sort of like flying a plane flying over the Atlantic, right? The captain comes over the radio. There's 200 people on the plane. Captain says, well, I've got some bad news and I've got some good news. The bad news is we're almost out of fuel, but I can't tell because the gauge isn't working. I don't know what direction we're flying and I don't know what altitude, but the good news is we're making great time, right? So some of you are running your business that way with a gut feel, and we've got to break you of that and get you to really focus and manage using data. It's so, so, so powerful. With that said, please keep working on your measurables. Now go ahead and fill out the who column, okay? Who is the person in your accountability chart that owns that delivers that number for you every week? Put their initials in there, just like I have. Sorry for my handwriting. Put a goal column in here, okay? What's the number that you need to see every week to know the business is on track? And then ultimately, you're going to have 13 weeks at a glance, and it just rolls. 13 weeks, every 13 weeks. Very, very, very powerful for gaining insight and clarity. And a lot of my clients go further out than 13 weeks. They keep it as far back as they need to keep it because then they start to get annual insights, etc. Okay? Has everybody had a chance to work on their scorecards? I'm seeing a nodding. Okay, so now it's time for questions and volunteers. So if you would like to ask a question on what we've done so far, scorecards, metrics, KPIs, please raise your hand, or you can just take yourself off mute and ask, or I'd like to hear your examples. Read to me out what your metrics are. Well, excuse me, what your measurables are. Any questions and volunteers? Now, Matt, you said I was going to voluntold you at the beginning of the call. I'm not going to put you in that position now, but are you willing to tell me what your examples are, Matt?
Yeah, the three that I had written out when you were asking about those three most important indicators, I wrote down cash flow, client retention, and results.
Now, what does results mean? Give me a little more specificity there.
Well, we're in the marketing space, and so if we produce a piece of content or run a campaign, we want to see that it's effective. And there's various ways we measure that, some of which you had on your slide, website visits, social media traffic, engagement, click-through rate, how long they watch a video for, conversions, if it's to get email addresses, sign up for a newsletter, all these kinds of. So yeah, results is like the way in which we would want to measure the effectiveness of the campaign or the asset.
Okay, good. That's a great start. Now, what you said, cash flow. What was the second one you said, Matt?
Cash flow and client retention.
Client retention. Yeah, that's great. Now, Matt, I've got a couple of marketing agencies as clients, and I will tell you that those are very consistent with what my clients have. Now, generally, and I'm just going to give you a little bit of advice and ask some questions. When it's challenging, the purpose of the scorecard is for when you're sitting in the meeting with your leadership team, whatever that leadership team looks like, maybe a head of sales, maybe in your case, delivery, maybe you've got a CEO, whatever that looks like, that you're sitting in that meeting, you're all having a conversation about the metrics that are driving the company. Now, when I hear the results, what I think about is that you've probably got campaign results and you've got ongoing, probably retainer driven results that are going to be determined client by client. I think gathering that data for those clients and providing that to your clients is immensely valuable, and you absolutely positively should do it. But you should be thinking, I think retention is really about where
he
your
showed me he's almost
client
done.
success is.
Yeah,
Excuse me, Dave, could you put
easy.
yourself on mute, please? Thank you. Does that make sense, Matt? Is that helpful at all?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that those would feed in, and the way that the success of your clients would be manifested would probably be around the fact that they've stayed, right? They're going to vote with their feet, as they say. So that's really good. Melanie, I see you pop up. Do you have a question, or would you like to volunteer yours?
I would like to volunteer, but I also want to say before I do that it's a little bit cheating on my end, as I have been an integrator for, I don't know, 5 years or so. And I've ran on Bloom Growth, scorecards, it's my daily bread.
Awesome.
So yeah, just a little bit of a heads up about that.
I guess you're a believer, so I'm always glad to have my people in the room. That's great, but I want to hear your examples for sure.
Yeah, so since we are a service provider, we have hours billed. That is always a huge indicator for us. We do have eligible intakes. That's a little bit more defined, not just the intakes itself, but the ones that are actually eligible, and turnover rate.
Turnover. Those are excellent. Now, what's an eligible intake? Tell me a little bit more about that metric, Melanie.
Eligible means that their insurance covers the service that we provide.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Great. Excellent. Thank you for sharing those.
You're welcome.
Any other, let's have some more volunteers or questions. I'm open to questions. If you got questions about anything that I've reviewed so far, please feel free to dive in. Chris, were there any questions in the chat? I haven't been monitoring it.
No questions in the chat right now.
Okay. All right. Any other volunteers? Questions? Going once? Going twice? All right. So thank you, Matt, and thank you, Melanie, for your input and participation. I really appreciate it. I love your commitment to growth and your business. Now, everybody keep working on this scorecard. Give it time, iterate it, grow to love it. Someday it might look like this, okay? Doesn't have to be 15, but this is just an example. So now next up, how do I use this data to make smarter decisions? So let me share with you a quick story. I once worked with a client who was struggling to understand why their sales numbers were inconsistent. They were up and they were down, and they were up and they were down. They couldn't really figure out what was going on with that. They felt like they were throwing darts in the dark. They actually used that phrasing when we talked about it in the session. So we implemented the scorecard, and within a few weeks, the data revealed that the issue wasn't in the number of leads, but in the conversion rate at a specific step in their sales process, right? So what was happening is there was a specific step where they were falling down, like it wasn't working, right? So armed with this information, they focused their efforts on improving that step and saw a 20% increase in conversions within a quarter. It was like suddenly turning on the lights in a dark room. Everything became clear and they knew exactly what needed to be fixed. They could move with clarity and confidence because they had the data to see the problem, fix it, and know it had been fixed. Now, remember when I said that the scorecard helps you keep a pulse on your business? Think about that metaphor, right? A pulse is a diagnostic tool. If your pulse is too high above the goal or too low below the goal, hopefully not too low, because then you have a real problem. You got to go to the emergency room. It's a clue that something is happening that doesn't conform to your expectations or your goals. So if one of your 15 weekly numbers is off the goal, above or below, that's a signal that it's time to dive deeper and diagnose what's happening, right? Ask why and figuring it out will provide clarity on how your business is operating. Now, one story I love to share with people is I led digital marketing at Aflac. When I arrived, their website had all these lead forms. And I was like, fantastic, show me the leads. And nobody could. There was no process that existed that I could discover where we were actually capturing the leads. And I dug deep down into it until I got to the IT guys and I started talking to them about server logs and about, there's got to be this data somewhere, and it really wasn't. And that site had been live with those lead forms for 2 years before I arrived. And think about all those multi-million-dollar commercials. Think about all that money that was spent on marketing, and nobody was actually tracking on a scorecard somewhere how many leads were coming into that website. And if they had, they would have seen that big fat zero, and somebody would have said way before I got there, hey, what's going on with all these leads, right? Why is this a zero? And they would have been able to fix that. But the scorecard would have fixed that. Fortunately, I did fix it. And we actually built out a direct sales arm on .com that made $13 million the first year, which I was pretty proud of. But so paying attention to it works. Okay. I think that working without a scorecard is a little like voluntarily choosing amnesia. What do I mean by that? So things are happening, right? But you're not fully aware of what's happening. You're not aware why. And a week later, in the absence of any facts, it's just gone, right? You haven't learned anything and you're moving on with your life, right? You're moving on with your business. You're just chugging away. I'm asking you not to opt for amnesia. Okay. So using a scorecard doesn't just help when things are off. It also keeps your team proactive and making smart decisions. Every week, you're not just looking at numbers. It's not just a rote exercise. You're having meaningful discussions about them. You're celebrating wins and addressing issues before they escalate. It's a game changer, right? Remember, what gets measured gets done. And I'm going to mention that a little bit more deeply in a few minutes, but with a scorecard, you're ensuring that every part of your business is not only measured, but managed effectively. Now, the second part of EOS's data component is what we call measurables. Okay. Now, now that you have a scorecard and measurables in the scorecard, ideally what you want to get to is something that we call everyone has a number, so that what we're talking about is challenging for most companies, but I would urge you not to give up on this. I'm a fanatic about this. In the best organizations, everyone has a number. It's non-negotiable. So the idea is, if you look at every seat on your accountability chart, everyone should have 1 or 2 or 3 activity-based numbers. That is your expectation of them. You're giving somebody a clear number expectation. A measurable is much more impactful than a verbal expectation or a bunch of words. So I urge you to get to the point where everyone has a number. Those numbers will then funnel up to the leadership team scorecards and demonstrate how every individual in the organization is actually helping you reach your end term, your long-term goals. Now, if you're not sure or you're confused about what I mean by seats, again, I have you covered. Go to my site, jameswisdom.com, scroll all the way down. There's a webinar from a couple of months ago called How to Get the Right People in the Right Seats. Watch that webinar and that'll clear it up for you. Okay. Now, I've had some clients struggling with their scorecard. This happens. It actually happens fairly regularly. They come back and we get into the session, and the issues on the issues list is that the scorecard's not working. The scorecard's not working. The scorecard's not working. It doesn't work for us, right? And so in every case I've ever drilled down, and this is across the entire universe of EOS, we've drilled down, and there's one conclusion. It's that it's not that your scorecard isn't working. It's that you're not working. It's never the scorecard. But what we learn as we dig into it is that they lack the belief in some basic truths. And if you don't subscribe to these 7 truths, okay, and I don't want you to write these down. I want you to feel them. You can always go back and watch the webinar later. Okay, I want you to feel them. If you don't subscribe to these truths, the scorecard is never going to work for you. And so I urge you, I beg you, I plead with you to embrace these truths. Okay, here's what we discovered. You must believe that truth number 1, what gets measured gets done. You got to believe in your bones, in your soul, that the mere act of measuring something is going to get you further ahead than not measuring it. You can't beat that belief out of me if you tried. I'd fight to my death for that truth. Okay. Number 2, you got to believe that managing metrics takes time. You got to believe that reviewing that scorecard every week takes time. It's going to take you 15 minutes to an hour every week to fill in that scorecard. You're thinking, holy cow, that's a lot of time. Yes, that's a lot of time you're going to save in hours and hours of saved misery, priceless insights, and getting actual results. Yes, it takes time, but it's going to save you vastly more time in the long run in the insights, results, and saved misery. You've got to believe that a scorecard gives you a pulse on the ability, gives you a pulse on the ability to predict. You got to believe that this tool, this mechanism will give you a pulse and the ability to predict. Yes, I repeated myself because it's important. The ability to anticipate the future, make great decisions for your business into the future. You've got to believe that. And you got to believe that you must inspect what you expect. You got to believe that. We've all heard of trust but verify, right? It's 100% true and accurate. Trust the people around you, but you got to verify. You got to check in. Checking in does not mean I don't trust you. Truth number 5 is that you've got to believe you can have accountability in a culture that's high trust and healthy. You can have accountability in a culture that's high trust and healthy. As a matter of fact, it's usually the reason it's high trust and healthy culture, because there's measurement. Everything's transparent, lucid, open, nowhere to hide. You're celebrating the wins. You're diagnosing and getting better when you don't win, as a team and as a culture, as peers and colleagues and coworkers. You understand what's happening. You're celebrating and you're working together. Measurement and analysis makes you better. That's healthy. Truth number 6, you got to believe that a scorecard requires hard work, discipline, and consistency to manage, but it's worth it. And so what you're about to create, it takes our clients 1 to 3 months for their scorecard to evolve into something they really love. And you got to be in for that. You got to know that it's going to take work, but it's going to be worth it in the long run. A lot of times, number 7, a lot of times is the number 1 reason why it's not working. So assuming you subscribe to numbers 1 through 6, number 7, you must believe that one person must own it. So here's what I learned is that when you all own it as a leadership team, nobody owns it. It kind of falls on its face. So what I've discovered is that when there's one person on the leadership team that obsesses about this company scorecard, takes it personally if there's not a number entitled that week, if there's not a number entered that week, that one person, doesn't matter who it is, it can be the visionary, the integrator, it could be the CFO. Rarely is it the sales manager, but somebody's got to own it. And so I need you to think about in your leadership team, who's the right person to obsess about this thing and drive it to a conclusion. You got to pick somebody who's passionate about it, because without that passion, it falls on its face and it doesn't work. Okay. I've seen this happen a million times. I've seen it happen way back when I was in corporate, right? If everybody owns the numbers, nobody really works on the numbers, nobody really cares about the numbers, and then it just fizzles out and people stop doing it. And then again, they're choosing amnesia, right? They don't learn as they're working their way along. Okay. All right, guys. So that is the data component. Those are the tools and disciplines we use to help you ditch the guesswork and master your data to make smarter decisions. Really run your business on data rather than feelings, emotions, and egos that so often drive the way you make decisions in an entrepreneurial organization. Now, I know our time today went fast. Your head is probably swimming. That's normal, and that's good. It means you're trying. Good. I applaud you. Now, we got a few minutes for questions.
Yeah, James, it's
Yes.
John here.
Hey, John.
I've got questions. So, I'm a little bit familiar with EOS, but I've heard everybody's supposed to have one number, but I see some people have more than one number. Okay, so I want to understand that. And then how many is too many for an individual? That's kind of one, getting the number of numbers that you're managing correctly. And then secondly, I've worked with clients before that had difficulty specifically in the operational or the R&D type of function of a business, finding a number. So, I stay on the sales side. It's pretty easy to number of sales calls, number of visits, proposals, whatever. It's easy. You live and die by numbers. But some areas of the business, it seemed to be tougher to find measurables that you could report on weekly. If they have a project, the development of a product that takes 3 months, it's not always the same regularity each week. So maybe if you could speak to those things, that might help.
Yeah. I totally understand both questions, John. Thank you very much. Those are really good questions. So 1 number, 2 numbers, 3 numbers, how do you do that? So when you stand back and within the EOS methodology, for each seat, we define the 5 core roles for each seat, right? You're familiar with that. And by the way, guys, if you're not familiar with it, it's really simple. We define 3 core roles. And when you look at those roles, what should be emerging to you and to anybody is, well, there's got to be at least one measurable hidden in there, right? So even if it's somebody who is digging holes, right? Let's just say this guy is a backhoe operator. We'll call him Bob. And his job is to dig holes day in and day out. Dig those holes. Bob, dig those holes. Now, what do you want from Bob, right? You want Bob to be digging holes accurately. You want Bob to be digging more holes today than he did yesterday, and than he did last week, and than he did the 6 months ago. And you want Bob to be probably friendly with his people. Now, friendly with the customers if he has exposure to customers. Those might be Bob's 3 numbers. Right? How many holes did you dig this week, Bob? What was the accuracy level? So I know I've got a couple of clients that are construction firms, big construction firms. And one of the things that they absolutely hate is what they call, go backs, right? So they use different terminology. And what that is like when they screw something up at the site, right? They don't ever want to go back, right? And have to fix it. So that's actually a measurable that's really common in my clients that work construction is errors or go backs. If an error that they did and they have to go back and not get paid for it, which eats up their margin, then that's a measurable that they're paying really close attention to. And the ideal number for that is 0. And so if they start seeing that climb, that's a good indicator for them to say, you know what? We need to figure out what's happening here. Who's actually triggering these go backs? Is there a training issue? Is there a new regulation we're not aware of? And that's why scorecards are so valuable, is because it triggers that investigation in order to drive the insight to keep your business moving forward. So I think whether it's 1, 2, or 3, I wouldn't get so hung up on how many metrics for each seat as much as finding the right metrics for each seat that are really meaningful and can communicate to someone like Bob that they're successful or they're not successful and they're driving toward the long-term vision. But you could say the same thing for, graphic designers in a marketing agency, right? Do the graphic designs that they're creating have to go through multiple cycles of review with the head of graphic design or the client, or are they generally accepted on first, right? That means there's less work. That means the higher margin, right? So you want to reduce that number as much as possible, right? So, I mean, we believe, and I have yet to get into a situation where we say, wow, there's really no way to measure that. Now, with R&D, what I've seen is companies that are doing a lot of R&D are generally doing that through a project timeline, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
there's different types of project timelines, and I'm not going to get too stressed about which model they happen to use in terms of managing those project timelines. But one of the key metrics they often use in those is being able to hit that milestone, right? So is the milestone reached? And if they're using Agile or they're not using Agile, doesn't matter. Every single framework that a company is using is to track that work and to make sure that those milestones are hit, right? So the metric for somebody that is a scientist and is literally looking into a microscope day in and day out to achieve a goal may just be that they hit that milestone on time and on target every week, right? Does that make sense? Does that help?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I guess the challenge that I've seen is if you have milestones every week, then did you hit your milestones, I guess. But if you don't have that broken down enough, you don't have enough opportunities to say whether or not you hit your measurable. So
Yeah.
creating the milestones weekly, or how many milestones if we've had this, then because you've got to measure the same thing over and over and over, and are you achieving your goal, right? Because I
Yeah,
saw
no,
this.
that's really valid. That's a great point, John, because I think when you looked at, and I'm way off the EOS, I'm way off the EOS
Sorry.
territory here, but I have enough experience to speak to this a little bit, right?
Okay.
If you were looking at 10 or 15 years ago, a lot of companies were running big, long waterfall style project management where
Yeah.
you would have a milestone it's 3 months out, right? But most companies at this point have moved to a more agile framework
Yeah.
where they're meeting much more frequently with the team, and they do have many interim milestones to make sure that they're on track. And they're doing that exactly for the same reason that we do Scorecard, which is to provide transparency into the work product as it's being done, so they can diagnose issues as soon as they happen, as opposed to, holy crap, we just worked for 3 straight months and now we're off track. We just realized when we missed the milestone. It's obviously much healthier, and I've been part of this personally, much healthier to find that out 3 weeks in than to find it out at the very end of a 6-month task. So I don't know, like, I think it depends on the company, but I would advise them to accelerate the way that they're paying attention to their project execution in a
I
way
think
that's
that's the
meaningful.
help. I think
Yeah.
that's the help, James. Thank you very much. I mean, I love that if you're not measuring it, you're not going to make the progress you need. So I love the concept and live with real numbers, not just it feels this or it feels that. That I think that's great, but that is very helpful for me. So
Okay.
I appreciate it, James. Thank you.
Awesome, John. Thanks for your question. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Evan, you've got your hand raised.
Hey, James. I actually wanted to make a quick comment based on John's question. And one of my observations that I found is that sometimes a measurable for a particular person in a given seat or in a particular function, for example, sales, it might be a lagging indicator for marketing, right? But the marketing measurable might be the leading indicator for sales.
That's right.
And so something else to consider when considering what measurables to create is what are lagging indicators and what are leading indicators for other functions in the business. So if you have marketing bringing in inbound leads and then sales converting those leads, and then operations, creating the product or delivering the service, and then finance getting paid, et cetera, the marketing measurable is a leading indicator of all of those other things, whereas the finance measurable might be a lagging indicator of all those other functions. So just something to consider.
Evan, I'm giving you an orange star for the day because you basically nailed customer experience measurement, right? So, and it's an orange star because EOS is all about orange. That's a little bit of a joke. I know it's a little nerdy, but because what you're literally talking about life cycle measurement, right? And leads is such a great example because when you have somebody enter the top of the marketing funnel, right? I'm a former marketing guy, so you're talking my language. I've worked with enormous volumes of salespeople over the years. Is you have, you're going from awareness, consideration, conversion, right? The lead is coming down through the funnel, they convert, and then they're going into, they actually go into consideration, then they're moving over to the sales organization, and then they're going to convert into a sale. And then you've got life cycle after that, service management, advocacy, and so forth. So I absolutely agree with you that looking at the whole life cycle for your customer and finding those moments that you're tracking the customer through in order to identify those areas of opportunity is absolutely the best way to track it. So thank you for bringing that up, because I think that provided a lot of clarity.
You're welcome. I actually just want to make one more comment, and that is
Yeah,
also
sure.
when considering what measurables for any particular seat, what would make for a great week is a great question to ask.
Yes.
What would make for a great week, regardless of what the particular seat is?
Yeah, that is really, what would make it for a great week with Bob digging holes, right? He dug a lot of holes. They were exactly where they were supposed to be. Didn't hit any pipes, right? Maybe that's your measurables, right? For Bob, at least. So yeah, good point. Thank you so much, Evan. That was really valuable. I appreciate it. Anybody else? Melanie, I see you there. I'm thinking maybe she wants to bring something up. I mean, you already brought something up earlier, but do you have any questions? You have anything you want to add?
No, I mean, as I said, like, I don't, everything that you're discussing is my daily bread. I mean, I've been on the system for 5 years. I've been through the integrator course. I worked with an implementer for almost 3 years prior, not anymore. So it's this is not news to me. So.
Well, that's good. Okay, good. Okay. Any other questions? I'm going to give this like a couple of heartbeats here. This is the time to say, James, but what about? And James.
Hey, James, this is Kong. I just want
Hey,
to
Kong.
just quickly mention, I think you mentioned about the keeping a compelling scoreboard. And when you look at behavior change, really, it requires people to make their goals obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying, right? Like those are the principles from the Atomic Habits, James Clear's book. And I'm in sales, and what I found is that when your goals are top of mind, meaning that they're on a whiteboard or they're in front of you on a post-it note, it makes you more reluctant. It increases your chance of changing your behavior to meet to change the behaviors to meet your goals on a daily or weekly basis. I think the discipline of engagement is really important when people and teams when they play differently with keeping a scoreboard. It makes accountability more visible, as well as it engages people in a way that would motivate them to play to win, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It makes complete sense. And actually, what you were just saying accentuated to me an opportunity for me to do better work within this webinar, right? Which is that when I was putting this together, what I didn't really get to, I touched on it really quickly a couple of times, but I need to do a little bit of a deeper dive, I think, is that the purpose of this scorecard is for the leadership team to be looking at this as a group, literally sitting together once a week, and within what we call within EOS, the L10 meeting, and going through that scorecard, right? So somebody's reading this out. Okay, Mary, are the weekly leads on track? Yes or no? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, going through the entire list. So there's clear transparency and visibility on that team, so that when Mary's walking into that meeting on Tuesday morning or Monday morning, whatever that meeting is happening, Mary knows that she's going to be answering for that. And it's not about beating up on Mary. It's about just keeping a pulse on the business. And if the number is off track, for the team to leverage their collective intelligence to help Mary solve for that, right? Figure out what the problem is so that they can get the team back on track. So I think you're absolutely correct. Thank you. I'm a big fan of the whiteboard, as are all EOS implementers, by the way, but I actually keep my own metrics at the top of a clipboard that I have right in front of me all the time. It's literally right there. And I'm a believer in what you said. So thank you for that. And that'll help me make for a better webinar next time around. Any other comments or questions today? Okay, now I want to ask something of you. I love helping entrepreneurial companies and working with motivated people who are ready to commit and grow their business and break through the ceiling. I like helping. So I ask you, look out for your friends, family, fellow business owners, peer or industry group members, pickleball buddies, golfing partners, your mahjong group, track day nemesis, whatever. If they need help, right? If their personal lives are disappearing, or they're complaining about their business. Like, my people aren't listening to me. They're not doing what I want. I don't know what the plan is. I've lost control of my business. I'm making lots of money, but it's not really great. Why am I doing this? Like, I hear that sometimes. Why am I doing this? I got into this for this, but it's not doing it for me anymore. I want to help them, right? I want to help them grow fast and smart and get their personal lives back and live a better life. I love helping, and I'll always help first. So tell them about me. I'd love to do a call with them. I'd love to share with them some of this information that we learned today and see if I can help them. And I help tons of people. I just like helping people. So it's not about me selling anything. It's really about me supporting them and helping their business grow. So that's it. What a great session. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I'm pleased to have met you. Thank you so much for everybody that contributed. I jotted some names down, so if I miss you, I apologize. Matt, Melanie, John, Evan, and Kong. Awesome job. I applaud you. Okay. If you have any questions, if anybody has any questions, anything we've covered, please feel free to contact me. I'm happy to help. Now, this QR code that's on your screen right now will take you to the downloads and bonus content related to this session, including the scorecard template that I showed and a cheat sheet of measurables across industries. It's not within EOS, but it's a fantastic resource if you're any company that are going, oh, I don't know what measurables to do. This will give you a great start. Even has the equations. It's like a one-pager. It's phenomenal. Okay. I'll post a recording of the webinar to this location in a couple of days, or as I said before, jameswisdom.com, scroll down to the resources section. I'd also like feedback on this session. How it can be better? If you have comments, please email me. Okay. And last, and perhaps most importantly, I'd like to thank our facilitator today, Chris Giddings with Cogent Connections.
Thank you, James.
Great job, Chris, for awesome job for helping people find me and for pulling the buttons and pushing the knobs while I could screw up my presentation order. You did a fantastic job. Thank you so much, Chris. I really appreciate it. All right, guys, if you have any questions, contact me. I'm happy to help. Have a wonderful Thursday.